Welcome back to Book Club. I'm C.M. Vasquez, author of The Birdcage Society Falling, the first in an ongoing psychological mystery series. Today I'm going to be recapping and giving my impressions of Chapter 17 of Darkly Dreaming Dexter. If you've already read this book or read the series, please follow along and give your own impressions in the comments. And if you haven't, read the chapters along with me and give me your impressions as well. Let's have fun with it. This chapter starts off with Dexter thinking about his first kill. He refers to her as Last Nurse, and her blood slide is among those on the shelf in his living room, and he pulls it out from time to time so he can remember. What he doesn't understand, however, is why he's thinking about the nurse right now, especially when there's much more important things to be thought about, like the fact that Dexter had not taken a blood sample from Jaworski. And maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace during that chapter for analysis, but I'm disappointed that I didn't catch that Dexter neglected to take a blood sample for his trophy collection. Dexter refers to the whole ordeal as stupid, impulsive, and incomplete. Not being able to finish off Jaworski in the way he wanted and now missing the blood slide makes the kill feel pointless to Dexter. And to be fair, given that he likes to pull slides and reminisce, I don't think that that Dexter would look back fondly on this memory. So maybe it's for the best that he didn't get a sample. And Dexter has no idea what to make of the Rita situation, so he simply ignores it. Instead, he drinks his morning coffee and waits for the paper. And he thinks about his disappointment over not getting the souvenir from Jaworski. He says, "We'll see." I honestly hope that Dexter doesn't end up getting the blood sample. I know that what he did to Jaworski was different, and although interrupted, Dexter did learn a few things that excite him, but given that it was unfinished and sloppy work, I don't think it fits with the same category of his other victims. Those victims were taken care of according to the Code of Harry, and Jaworski, although the code was still present in some ways, felt more like provocation and influence from the prostitute killer. So much so that arguably the dark passenger was more in control than Dexter. That's not something that I gather happens often. Although we do know that the events leading up to killing Jaworski was more him at odds with his dark passenger. The dark passenger was very much in control. But during the killing, Dexter and the dark passenger did become one. But if Dexter does manage to get a blood sample, I will be disappointed if he puts it with the other slides. It doesn't feel like it belongs, and I feel it would be an insult to Harry. When the paper comes, Dexter flips through it, looking for anything on Jaworski. Dexter says he doesn't usually follow reports about his victims, but of course, this one's unique. Dexter was foolish and needs to know if he covered his tracks properly. The article talks about LaGuerta. She was on the scene, calling it a copycat of the prostitute killer. In standard idiot LaGuerta fashion, of course, since this kill is completely different. But it seems Dexter is in the clear, at least. Deb calls him in a huff before he needs to go to work, thinking Dexter has been wrong about how the prostitute killer's next kill would go. She doesn't think it's a copycat, though, because it's too soon. And of course, Dexter can't say much because he's the one responsible for Jaworski. When Dexter arrives at work, he beelines to Masuka's office. Thankfully, and on purpose, Dexter had arrived before him. So his office was empty, save for the evidence box of Jaworski. Dexter grabs some tissue samples and gets his souvenir blood slide. Masuka shows up just as Dexter is finishing up. He asks if he can see the file on the man from that morning's paper, under the guise of wanting to help out Deb. Masuka says there's plenty of blood this time, and that Jaworski was still alive when his leg came off. But, given what Jaworski was doing to children, I can't quite find it in myself to feel bad about that. The man got what he deserved, as far as I'm concerned. Dexter's perusal of the file confirms that he and his car were not seen by the security guard. LaGuerta runs into Dexter, literally, on the way to his desk. She seems seems she was waiting for him. She was near his desk long enough to know the contents of the voicemail left on his answering machine by Rita. LaGuerta says the woman sounds happy and sleepy. I'll just bet she does. LaGuerta questions Dexter on the file he's barely glanced at. She says she doesn't believe they have the wrong guy in custody because he confessed to the prostitute killings. But if she's so sure, why ask Dexter about Jaworski at all? Dexter thinks she's getting pressure from the captain to prove this murder isn't connected to the prostitute killings. Of course, we know the murder is connected, just not in the way LaGuerta means. The chapter ends with Dexter listening to Rita's message, and he thinks this must mean that he has a real girlfriend now. I really like Rita. I hope Dexter treats her well, even if he can't feel anything for her. That ends this chapter. See you next time. Bye.